Hello, welcome back to On the Mic with Mike. In this episode, I've got with me from Trinidad and Tobago, the land of calypso and steel band, and the land of a very good friend of mine, Mr. Garth St Clair. Hello, Garth.
Hello, Mike. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, and I know you're doing wonderful as well. Just to add to that introduction, you are a very active and dynamic part of the calypso scene in Trinidad and Tobago. We'll come to the other things that you are involved in a few moments from now. But you are a calypsonian, and you've been involved in the calypso competition in Trinidad and Tobago for quite a number of years, and this year as well. Tell us about your involvement this year.
Well, this year, like you said, is just a continuation of that journey that had started 30-something years ago. And the love for this art form for me is really undying. And just yesterday, I had to share, and you know my history, you know about our independence and all of it, how it started. And just yesterday on an interview, I had to share a letter that I wrote to my mom when I was in prison for that 6-month period that actually brought me back to life, telling her that if one thing I must do is to sing calypso. As a matter of fact, the day she visited me in prison, I entered a calypso competition and won. She didn't know. I
Wow.
didn't tell her anything. Because the old school parent, they saw these things as just for entertainment purposes. That and sports. They felt that that was just for entertainment purposes that they couldn't live by. So she was more concerned about me getting a job and all of that. So I couldn't tell her anything about calypso. Although they grew us up on calypso because the March Gras night, every Sunday night, that was like a big lime at home growing up with my mother and father. And a couple of neighbors would come over and their favorites were Chalky and Shorty and Sparrow, So we actually grew up on it.
Right.
So
And let
so
me
it,
also just insert here, Garth, because you are also a serving member of the Trinidad and Tobago military.
yes, well, in the voluntary capacity, before I was an active soldier back then. But I'm no longer serving in the regular force. So
Okay.
ever so often, I would go back down there and volunteer, or sometimes they would ask me to do lectures for the troops and all of that. So I'm still actively involved with the Defense Force. Um, I'm one of the go-to drug demand reduction prevention lecturers. So I'm still very much active in it, but the military has never left me. I've always maintained that posture or always maintained that discipline. I live a very regimented life. So, and I think that is what helped me actually to recover from substance abuse and all of that. So that military part of me will never leave.
And that is also two other elements there that we are going to come to. You spoke about discipline and regimented, and you are also involved in a support system for people who are fallen on hard times or drug abuse or spousal abuse in Trinidad and Tobago. You actually do a radio program and podcast pertaining to that, and you are also heavily involved in fitness. That's quite a lot for any person to attempt to do in any day lasting only 24 hours per day. But principally, I want to talk to you about Calypso and
Yeah.
your big hit for the 2025 Calypso season, Kaiso Vagrant. I'm going to
Yeah.
drop a bit of it in here now.
Oi, how are you going? I'll talk to all about something just now. Hold on, I'll make a little dollar. Yeah, the boss. Yeah, the boss, stop. All right. Over here, this now a little problem. This, as a conscious Kaisonian, I was ready to give all I can for Kaiso showbiz. Hold on. but now I have some doubt. My hand in the lion mouth, the returns not adding up to the expenses. When I sing nice songs in the semi-final, people swear that I make the demonstration. Fuck like they want my soul, my pocket full of holes. I finish pawn all my silver and gold. Kaiso will make me a vagrant. Kaiso will make me a vagrant. Money tight, dread and slow. Is my vagrant partner clothes I borrow? Kaiso will make me a vagrant. Kaiso will make me a vagrant. I hustling by traffic light like I want to end Morris Street in the night. Kaiso could make me a vagrant. God in heaven knows I could end up a vagrant for Kaiso. To tell you how this thing's serious, this time I believe me chorus. Hear them. I could end up a vagrant for Kaiso. Well, you all right, yes? I have to make a dollar, yes? Hear the boss. Hear this. Year after year, I just try my best to present Kaisos with depth and beautiful melodies. My partner mother can't make finals and I can't. Sometimes I feel somebody messing with me. Social commentaries, well-researched, positive, thought-provoking, original and constructive. Yet a Kaiso jump from Tobago in the mascot just so Mr. Mother can't flatten that like a pompano. Kaiso go make me a vagrant. Kaiso go make me a vagrant. I selling chatine in the market, cause every year I take in baskets. Good Lord God. I sneak in the bush by Trevor Sayers. I bounce about 2-3 entertainers. This Kaiso go make me a vagrant. God in heaven knows I could end up a vagrant for Kaiso. In case all you think I kicks in, listen to what my friends them saying. I could end up a vagrant for Kaiso. Good Lord, man. Papa, yes. Daddy boss.
So that's Kaiso Vagrant by Garth St Clair, who actually sings as Garth St Clair. What's that all about, Garth?
What do you mean? I'm not using a sobriquet?
Yeah, and the title of the song.
Right. Well, I mean, when I started singing calypso, I started in the regiment. My sobriquet was the Black Man, and then after getting discharged, I kept the name GS Soldier for a while because I was still in sort of denial about not being active part of the force. But then I managed to shake that and decided to go, follow the example of some who went before me, like some of the old names like Sparrow and Stalin and Kitchener and all of that. People started dropping all these titles in Mighty and Lord and all of that. And some people just decided, okay, just go with their real name. So I went with their real name, my real name. But Kaiso Vagrant is a sort of funny but serious lamentation of the state of our calypso with regard to benefiting from the art form. We cannot seem to find ourselves in that place where everybody who is on the list or registered calypsonian could actually benefit from being a calypsonian. It's just this dash, I should say maybe a 400 meters dash, because it starts from the 10th and then it goes to the preliminary round and then the semi-final and the final. And there seems to be this 1 year dash to that pot of gold. And if you are not good enough, then you are left in the calypso 10th. You would not see skin apart. Once you're good enough, you see skin apart. And then most of the time, a lot of us are left, at least 30 of us, or 29, I should say, left of us are left in Skinner Park and all the rest go to the Queen's Park Savannah.
So now
And
let's just break it down for the folks who are listening to this. We
yeah,
all across the Caribbean and elsewhere have heard constant references in Calypso to Skinner Park and the Oval. Just put
yeah.
that in context for us.
So the Calypso monarch really is it goes in 3 phases. So you get selected to sing in a Calypso tent, or then there's the unattached for those who are not in a tent. So there will be a judging period for those who were not lucky to get into a Calypso tent. They'll have what they call the unattached preliminary round, so that people who are not attached to a tent will go to venues stipulated for this event, which lasts on a Saturday and a Sunday, whole day. So one will be in South, one will be in Port of Spain, where those who are not attached to a Calypso tent would go and display their wares for the judges. Then, after which, the judges now would start making rounds to the different Calypso tents. So we have Classic Russo, Calypso Dynasty, Review tent, we have Crocro's tent, which is the icons, and a number of smaller tents around that the judges would visit on a stipulated night. So each tent captain would go to a meeting and draw for positions, and the judges now, according to that position, will visit your tent. Like this year, our captain pulled number 1, so the judges came to our tent first. And then you would sing before the judges. That night, the judges will select at least the top 3 or 4 in the tent that will now go to the semi-final round. After they make the rounds in all the tents, they normally select like 4 or 5 from each tent to make up the 40. And that 40 now will go to Skinner Park, of course, after rehearsals and everything. And then they would perform before the judges there again in the semi-final round. Now that Skinner Park is what is deemed as the acid test, because this is where people come from east, west, north, and south, maybe even overseas, to this event. It's a huge picnic that starts from, let's say, around midday and goes all the way sometimes till midnight, where the people will witness 20 rounds of Calypso before intermission, and then another 20 rounds. Each calypsonian will sing 1 song, and that 1 song has to be the song that you've selected in the tent, and you go to Skinner Park. Now, that's the people down there, apart from the judges, who you have to impress.
And Skinner Park, just to put it geographically, Skinner Park is in San Fernando. That's in the southern part of Trinidad.
Southern part of Trinidad, that's right. So, and that what they call the acid test is, if the crowd don't like you, they will let you know by waving toilet paper, and you know, they will hold up signs and say, well, go and come again, or you know, rubbish or thumbs down, whatever. And but you just have to try your best and ignore them and sing your song, your Kaiso. At the end of it is what the judges have to say, because this year Kurt Allen got some good toilet paper, only because he chose to sing a political commentary, a biting one, citing the Prime Minister who is on his way out now, Dr. Rowley, that, hey, everybody got their bashing, everybody got their lashing. So this is your turn now. Don't feel you're going and run away just so easy without getting a little stab, you know?
Yeah.
Because the 9 years he was in office, nobody touched him. And that's for a reason probably we can get into later on. But nobody touched him. You know, long ago, the politicians feared the Calypsonian.
Yeah.
Now,
you know something, Garth, I'm just going to drop something in here, because now that you've mentioned that nobody touches or has touched Dr. Rowley, I remember, I think a few years ago, there was a female calypsonian who sang a song praising Dr. Rowley and saying he is the best at, in her words, prime ministering, and that he's a volcanologist. And that is a volcanologist. Dr. Rowley was actually in Montserrat as a volcanologist with the eruption of the volcano.
Right.
Yeah, so that was a link there.
Yes. Well, you see, what the thing is, Calypso now has reached the stage where, remember, long ago, Calypsonians were more independent. Government funding was so much a part of it. And then with the absence of social media back then, people wanted to know what was going on. So they flocked to the Calypso tent. And the Calypso tent was where you would get the hard-hitting political commentaries. But under Prime Minister Williams, then you had Chambers, Robinson, those guys took their flack, right? Calypsonians, what the Calypsonians didn't sing about them is what they forgot. Until Dr. Williams had to come up with the phrase, let the jackass break.
Yes, I remember that.
Right, and that is when Shoki took a stab at him, and people asked him, so what he thought about that? And he said, just let the jackass break. And but politicians back then were very thick-skinned. Now, fast forward to 2010, when the UNC, when before that, when Basil Pandey became prime minister, and the blows started to pass, he turned it into the Calypsonians not attacking the prime minister, they're attacking Indian people. And that took life. So the Indian people stopped patronizing the Calypso tent. And that's one of the reasons why they say, Calypso tents dying now, because the Indian community have decided they're going to boycott the tents because of what Pandey, insinuated. And they blame Watchman and Crow and Aloes for that. Because, these guys were the really hard-hitting guys, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Right. So from then, and then, of course, the Ministry of Culture got involved in now sponsoring and giving subventions to Calypso tents. And the subventions were threatened now if anybody dared to sing about a party that's in office at the time. So Calypsonians started now refraining from doing it. So that is why you will find that the more of the contributions for Calypso for the last 10 years were more social commentary rather than political commentaries.
Okay, so that is the distinction. It reminds me of an old song. If you dance to the music, you got to pay the piper. So that's a form of control there straight off.
Yes. That's why it reached to the point where even people like Aloes became scared. And the thing is, and then Aloes made one huge mistake to sing on stage. That's the year in 2010, 2011, around there when UNC won the election. I think Jack Warner and they saw it as an opportunity to grab Kaisonians by the cojones and say, well, if all you want our money, then you cannot sing on us. And that reason, they went so far. Aloes, especially his review tent, is an independent tent. It's not a government tent. So he depended on subvention from the government. So when UNC came in and they realized, well, we have him here now, because anytime, we want him to work on our behalf now, he's not going to get any money. They tried that with Coco. Coco tell them, no way, I'm not doing it. So Coco escaped that, but Aloes had to fall for it because, he didn't have any other means of income to run the tent.
So let me come back in here then, because the fantastic history and overview that you're giving us here, you've been able to capture all of that into a calypso, reflecting your personal situation as a calypsonian and that of your colleagues as well, to call it a Kaiso gonna make me a vagrant.
Yes.
That is fantastic. Well, that's what calypso does. Now, you spoke about political commentary versus social commentary, and back in the day, it was said that calypso, and you hear it not only in Trinidad but throughout the islands, Montserrat, Antigua, Dominica, all over the place, that back in the day, the calypsonian was the messenger of the people, and the calypso was the newspaper of the people, more like a kind of a seasonal newspaper, given the seasonality of carnival. But I'm getting the impression now, listening to your song, checking the lyrics and so forth, that in Trinidad and Tobago, in particular, the home and land of calypso, calypso itself, the entire calypso spectrum can actually be a career. You can be a career calypsonian, 24/7, 365 days a year. Tell us a bit about that.
You mean if it should be like that, or if it's like that now?
Is it like that now, or is there a possibility
Oh.
of it being like that?
No, it's not. And this is why in the last verse of the calypso, I slowed it down deliberately so that they can understand. I am hoping and praying that one day each calypsonian can actually live off the art form. Right now, it's not so. So, which means that after this race is over, as I tell you, because from the time you reach the Skinner Park, okay, if you record a song, it's gonna get played until Skinner Park. Once, and those who didn't make Skinner Park, well, that's the end of them. You're not going to hear that calypso again. And then once you didn't make that final cut of 10 or 11 people, then that's the end of your calypso there. And once the season is over and Ash Wednesday comes around, only, and I'm saying only but only the people who, let's say, come out in the top 5 of the Calypso Monarch competition get work during the year. So the irony is somebody will go and win, let's say, the least prize, the sixth, I think, $175,000. And on top of that, they will get work to do during the year. But the ones who didn't make it and have recordings, the money that they spent on that recording is done and dusted. There's no going back on it because, you know, we have a tradition here that you have to produce a new track every year. So the ones who didn't make it and didn't have a chance to recoup some of their money spent on props and recordings, and which can amount, I could tell you, average $25,000 to $30,000 every year. So a calypsonian will put out that amount of money every year and never make it to the grand final, which maybe can help them recoup some of that money, because after 8th place or after 7th place, everybody gets $45,000. So that could still say, you could still say, well, look, you recoup some of your costs recording and preparing for these competitions, right? But once that is done, then there's nothing else for us to do and start planning for next year.
Okay. But I'm jumping
back.
Yes, I'm jumping back in again, because on the one hand, I can see where, as far as the popularity of a particular song that doesn't make it beyond Skinner Park, however, fortunately with social media, that song can maintain a popularity. But that's not a popularity that actually pays for the investment that would have been made in producing that song.
Correct.
Well, what about touring? Because I know that, okay, we have carnivals and calypso events popping up all over the place. I would suspect that a lot of the quote-unquote career calypsonians or soca stars would tend to do a lot of touring throughout the year, carnivals in the various Caribbean islands, in New York, in London, in Canada, in Europe now. There are carnivals in Europe now. Is that a possibility?
No, for the soca artists, not for the calypsonian. And it's unfortunate. Somebody has to see you perform down here. So, like, if somebody come down here and they see me perform Kaiso Vagrant, they say, hey, that's funny, that's serious. Let's call him, let's invite him to come to Barbados, let's invite him to come to Jamaica. Unless that happens, nobody calls you as a calypsonian. Only the top, like I said, only the top 3 people may get something to do somewhere else in another carnival, but most of these carnivals look for soca artists.
So we're making the distinction here between a calypsonian and a soca artist. Now, this has been, one element of it has been an ongoing debate throughout the Caribbean involving Montserrat and Arrow. We are not going to have that debate right now. I want you to make that distinction for us between who or what is a calypsonian and who and or what is soca, as seen from the perspective of Trinidad and Tobago.
Right. So from the perspective of Trinidad and Tobago, a calypsonian is someone who tells a story. Hence the line we have that says, by calypsos all stories are told. So a calypsonian will touch on nation building, social commentary, or political commentary that speaks to what's happening in and around Trinidad and Tobago, the Caribbean, or even the world by extension. Because there are people who would compose, like I remember the year Chucky Gordon sang calling out Charlesy, referring to King Charles, excuse me, telling him about reparations, that we haven't received it as yet and all of that. So calypso comes in that form of commentary, the voice of the people, and what the people want to say, the calypsonian will encapsulate it in 4 verses and stand in front of a microphone and tell the rest of the country or the rest of the Caribbean, this is how we feel. Now, this calypso, the beats per minute on a calypso is, let's say, only now people sort of crossing 90, 95 into 100 with beats per minute for a calypso. Like, going back to the past when we had like Margin by Sparrow, Drunk and Disorderly, or Kitchen, of that tempo. But it's still a calypso that tells a story. The soca, on the other hand, is we talking about 120 to 150 beats per minute that has fewer verses, may have 2 or even 3 verses, a hook line, and it more speaks to that aerobic kind of enjoyment, whereas a calypso you have to sit and listen. A soca is what keeps you on your feet, and hence the word aerobic, that will keep you jumping and waving. And these soca artists premiere like Marshall Montano, Super Blue. That's really what a soca artist is now. A calypsonian can be both soca artist and calypsonian, or vice versa. In the cited Marshall again. As you see, Marshall is the reigning calypso monarch of Trinidad and Tobago right now. But his forte has always been the soca genre of music.
Right, and we recall last year when he won last year with the tempo was slowed down quite considerably, and there's a discussion that whether or not he might have blurred the lines with a song that was topical about the art form. Soca is calypso, calypso is soca.
Right. No, and he was right in a way, because remember, calypso came first before there was soca. And it was always said that calypso is the mother of soca, because Rashorty decided to combine both of them. Now, there's an argument out there, it was Rashorty or Maestro, but these 2 gentlemen, let me just say, they combined the calypso with that soca beat that they came up with, or that beat, that faster beat, and that's how the soca. So soca was always deemed to be the offspring of calypso.
And now, in your case, and I know here we got into a discussion just a while there about the possibilities of a career in calypso, which now seems to be more of a possibility of a career as a soca artist as opposed to being a career for a calypsonian, unless you are so good that you make the you make the transition from Skinner Park, that venue, the acid test venue in San Fernando, South Trinidad, to Queen's Park Oval in Port of Spain, where the big Monarch final is held.
Yeah, the Queen's Park Savannah.
Yes, Queen's Park Savannah. But all right, sorry, continue. This is fascinating.
No. Yeah, no, it is. Now, a calypsonian can, and I say can, really live off this art form, but they must fall in the top 3, because the financial remuneration from that, being in that top 3, is substantial. So, like, for instance, the first place winner here gets a $300,000 car plus $700,000 for the first car.
Okay, so you're referring there in Trinidad and Tobago dollars. Convert that so in US dollars.
In US dollars, let's say okay, so the first prize is $1 million. So the equivalent in the US would be what? 10,000, 15,000 US. Let's say, yeah, thereabouts.
Right.
You know, about let's say about 20,000 US.
But that
Right?
is a considerable amount of money.
Yeah, well, I mean, in our neck of the woods, yeah, that is. I mean, the second prize winner will get somewhere between 700 or $600,000. So if you can end up getting, let's say, 3 years straight in the first three, I mean, that money you can invest, you know, and you can now actually relax and prepare for another season comfortably because you make at least a 2 years pay in one night, you know, and it can happen, but it must be, you know, that you're ending up in that category for at least 2 or 3 years straight. I mean, we have young calypsonians here who have done it, and they seem to be doing well, and they always, you see, once you have that money, then you can hire, if you're not writing your own calypso, you can hire a proper songwriter, you can get the best musicians to record with, you could get the best people to mix and master. That money could have helped you do that.
And let me just jump back in here, Garth, because as you were speaking, I just did a calculation, seeing that this issue now about the pot for the winning calypsonian comes into the picture. So did you say the calypso winner, the monarch, would get about 600,000 Trinidad and Tobago dollars?
No, 700,000 plus a motor car value 300,000.
That's close to 100,000 US dollars. I'm coming down to Trinidad to sing calypso. Well, I can talk.
There you go. You know, yeah, is that lucrative? But and this is why.
You need to be successful and constantly successful and always be within that top 5. So that being the case, then let's break it down a bit more. On average per year, about how many calypsonians would, even across the tent at the starting level, would enter the competition?
Let me see. So each calypso tent, let's say average will have about 20, 25 people. All right. So let's say 25 by 4, and then you have on the outside a couple hundred more. So in all, we have registered calypsonians. We have about 1,500 calypsonians registered.
1,500, 1,500 calypsonians to go through to eliminate, process of elimination. When you get to Skinner Park, coming out of the tents, you're at Skinner Park. How many are you then selecting? Are you selecting, is it 40 you said?
Just 40 out of that bunch.
And how long does that process take?
You mean
from the time you start, the carnival starts, to to Skinner Park, to the Queen's Park Savannah?
That would take about 2 months because our tent was open at the end of January. We opened on the 29th of January. And the tent runs for 4 nights a week. Depends on what's happening, 4 or 5 nights a week. And the tent would run for like 3 weeks. So you just have that period to prepare yourself to face the judges before you get to Skinner Park. So you would spend at least 2 weeks in the tent before you face the judges to go to Skinner Park. So all that has to happen within a month.
And just recently, you made a post, and I commented on it and wished you well, in which you said, you know, your boy heading for the top 16. What's the significance of that top 16, the way you put it?
No, that I remember saying that I managed to stay in the top 40 as I did last year and the year before. But number 16 was that position that I pulled to sing in Skinner Park.
Okay, that was your singing position.
Yes,
and
that was your singing position.
Right. So then out of the Skinner Park, you got to Skinner Park, didn't you?
Yes, I got to Skinner Park.
Right, but you're not at the Savannah.
No, I'm not there. Well, they left me in the park as usual. And
so that's the term, you were left in the park, meaning you were left in Skinner Park.
Yeah. Because that train leaves Skinner Park, now head to the Savannah. And if you're not on that train, that's it.
Right.
You're done until next year. And that's the hard part for those who didn't make it. And it's kind of daunting for some because if you look at the composition of this year's top 10, it comprises of 6 former monarchs and one or two newcomers. Now, unless you have to have a massive hit, as we have a young brother, that youngster who is a breakout artist this year.
Yes, young
But he
brother.
has a top soca hit too as well. Called The Greatest Ben Over. And then we had this young man, Squeezy Rankin. Now, Squeezy Rankin has been in the field for a while now, but he was more of a reggae artist. And he decided to jump in the calypso ring, and lucky for him, the song hit, and he's now in the finals tonight. But there is a certain, almost the same set of faces and names end up in the final most of the time. And that's another thing that, it's beginning to concern us, as it's as if there are some people, no matter what they sing, they seem to be always in the final. And that's a bone of contention with a lot of us down here. Because Saturday gone, I don't know if you followed that fiasco that took place down there, with the technical difficulties that most of us experienced when we went on stage. The sound system was horrible, and in a competition, the judges need to hear you. Terry Lance, who is in the finals now, she had real problems being heard when she was on stage, and she still made it to the final. So, it just like I did, like one of the judges commented that I should try and test my mic before I come out, because I use a headset mic.
Right.
And
Yes, and in your performance, yeah. So yeah, I've seen that, yeah.
But that wasn't my job. The job testing the headset mic to make sure it was ready for me was the engineers and the sound system people, and they didn't do that. So I trusted them. They're thinking that they were professional enough to make sure that the mic was up to standard and have the same power that all the other contestants' mics had, and it didn't. So the judges didn't hear most of what I had to sing. And for that reason, I didn't make it. Terry Lance, whose mic cut off 3 or 4 times, she had to stop in mid-sentence, she still made it to the final. So, and I mean, I can't be mad at her because she didn't select herself. But everybody, that was a head scratcher. People are still trying to figure out how she managed to make it there, even though she had microphone problems. So,
and I can tell you, up and down the Caribbean, Trinidad, Barbados, Antigua, Montserrat, St. Kitts, Dominica, St. Lucia, Grenada, St. Vincent, London, wherever there's a calypso competition, you can be assured of one thing: calypso bacchanal, calypso controversy, and I think there are many calypsos about that at all as well. Now,
yeah.
You're also involved in so many other things, Garth. You spoke about your military career at the beginning. You're also involved as a substance abuse counselor, and you do a radio production called Eye on Dependency, where you discuss issues pertaining to relationships, spousal abuse, sort of helping people to stay on the straight and narrow. And you do that with Natasha. That's your wife, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So give us a bit of, we want to just get everything that we can touch base on with you. Tell us a bit about, first of all, your Eye on Dependency project.
Well, that dependency came about from my concern about what's going to happen to people younger than me, who, especially when they go to the military. And crack cocaine was introduced to us in the military, some of us, and some of us fell victim to it. And instead of we had gotten the help needed, we were discharged, even though, and we didn't know that back then that the Defense Act spoke to treatment and not discharge. But under Joseph Theodore and Ralph Brown, they felt that, hey, once you cross that line, you were gone. So I was one who fell through that crack. And as you know, if you pardon the pun, crack cocaine became a phenomenon back in the 80s.
Yeah.
And I was studying for exams, and I was told that it would keep me up to study, and I tried it, but I never could have let go of it. Or it didn't let go of me until I got discharged. And after that discharge, I went back home, and of course, as all addictions go, I continued until it landed me in prison. Actually, I was singing with a band, and I sold some of the equipment to satisfy my habit, and I was sentenced to 6 months in prison. And it's while I was in prison, now mind you, I tried rehabilitation before that. That didn't work. And but it's going to prison, having lost that good military career because I was a physical training instructor in the military, which is one of the prestigious posts in the military. And I blew all of that. And when I got to prison, is then I realized, what I'd done, and I was really remorseful. And I promised God that once I leave there, I would not touch crack cocaine again. And thank God I kept that promise to this day. The thing is, I had an opportunity to, I went to Canada. I managed to get a work permit to sing with a band. And I was doing that, but there was something that was bothering me about Trinidad and Tobago and the military, which was I know that anybody weaker than I was will fall prey to this. And the military, the military is not an easy place. So a lot of people will fall through the cracks. And what do they do about it? So I came back to Trinidad, and I remember doing a song called Ex-Soldier's Prayer, where I reached out to Joseph Theodore, who was Minister of National Security then. He was former Chief of Defense Staff, letting him know that if you don't help our soldiers, the underworld is going to snap them up. One of the things that I mentioned, and we have to be careful of training people to use all types of weapons. And when a simple drug test, they fail, and you discharge them rather than help them. It made no sense to me, And so for that reason, I decided, let me start a program on radio speaking about substance abuse and its related ills. Because when crack cocaine hit Trinidad and Tobago wasn't ready for it. And we've lost a lot. I mean, I'm right now maybe going to thousands of good people, good, talented sportsmen, tradesmen, academics, you name it, through crack cocaine. So this program, Iron Dependency, I called Natasha. At that time we were just friends. She was on radio. I just wanted to find an outlet to talk about substance abuse and what is going to happen when people try. And it turns out it was timely because there wasn't a program like that anywhere on radio in Trinidad and Tobago. So, and I started off by telling my story first. I was open and honest with my audience and let them know this program going forward would be, you would hear more stories like this because now I started seeking out people who are struggling, people who recovered from crack addiction, and it's expanded to other addictions like gambling, alcohol, and other drugs.
Yeah.
And
how long has this been going on?
This year will be 24 years.
24 years.
Yeah.
That, I mean, to maintain that is a huge success. So massive congrats to you and also to Natasha as well. You also spoke about in your previous career in the military, and you're still involved with the military as we speak. You were a fitness instructor, and we can see on your Facebook profile that you still continue to do that as well. Only not just for yourself, but I would suspect to inspire other people as well.
Yes. I was fortunately for me, there's a saying, instructors are born, but you can make some if they want to. But I think I was one that was really born for it because after leaving the military is something that I never discarded. That waking up early every morning and hitting the road, And to me, it is what helps me now, because that physical fitness is what helps keep me mentally strong to deal with the kind of work I'm doing. So as a result of that, I decided, why not show some of my colleagues, what we were taught. We were taught back then that you're responsible for your own personal fitness. And I would see some soldiers, even past instructors, who now walking around with 4 or 5 10-inch bellies, and I just find it look weird. And I keep saying to myself, anytime somebody introduced me as a former instructor, they must say, yeah, he looked like that, rather than really, because now I'm a big fat Santa Claus kind of looking kind of guy. I don't want that kind of look. So I just kept going, and to this day, I can't live without it. So it's part of my routine that helps me to keep going. And of course, I have inspired a lot of people to get back their running shoes on and hit the gym and hit the road, so that because the older we get, Mike, we have to be serious.
Exactly.
Long ago when we young, like 19, 20, you could eat a whole roti and go and burn that off in your sleep. Now, our metabolism and metabolic rate slow down.
Yeah.
So older we get, we have to be very careful now to keep those pipes working, to keep those arteries running free. Yeah. And so I have to change up the diet and, eat less junk and more healthy foods and stuff so that I can keep going.
That's a fantastic, fantastic story. Are you putting all of this in a book or just in calypsos? Because the calypso part of you keeps going.
Yeah, no, I'm actually going to do a book.
Okay, fantastic.
I have to, because the journey I've traveled, I have to share that with people. It's not an easy journey. It was not an easy journey, and it still is not, because there's a stigma still, even though people like your good self and 1 or 2 people who don't judge the man by his sins, but judge the man by his character. There are still people who tend to think that substance abuse is a moral deficiency rather than a disease. So I'm still judged and in certain quarters as that person, but I just have to keep going, and those who need the help and I can help by what we dispense with them, that's fine.
Not wanting to stress this too much, I'm certain that your capabilities, your experience, your talent, your experience, your professionalism is in desperate need across the Caribbean, because we know what the story is. We know what the story is. And in terms of your calypsos, you'll be continuing in calypso. So let me just put the question to close. What's next in calypso for Garth St Clair?
Ah, boy. Yeah, that's a good question. I am going to come with a calypso next year, please God, that will carry me to the savannah, then I have to carry it. That's the plan. Because I have to give them something that they cannot refuse, because remember, we still have a challenge too. We still have a challenge where the judging of calypso in Trinidad and Tobago has been woefully inadequate. That we still don't know if we have the right people to judge. We're going to have the chairman of the NCC, who is Winston Peters, on our independency the Sunday after Carnival.
So that's Winston Peters, for folks listening. That's the calypsonian gypsy.
Gypsy, right. He's also the NCC chairman. And as you know, the National Carnival Commission, they oversee everything carnival.
Yeah, he was the Minister of Culture at one time.
At one time, yes, in the UNC government. The thing is, we're going to have him on the program, and I'm going to raise some of these issues with him, and about having on each judging panel, have at least 1 or even 2 veteran calypsonians who are not competing any longer and competent enough to judge. Because we have people coming off the street who say they like calypso and they want to judge calypso, but year after year, we continue to see some really blatant errors in their judgment. So that's one of the problems too. Because, for instance, this mark originality, this category originality. Some of them tend to not understand what it is, and it's very blatantly so. Because remember year before, I did a song, a Kaiso called Days of Our Lives. Now, this calypso was written by Gregory Ballantyne. And this calypso, Gregory Ballantyne took the names, get this, the names of 75 movies and TV shows and made a calypso out with them. And no, you can't get more original than that. But then the score for that was 7, 8 out of 10. Some give me 6 because they didn't understand the calypso. And then last year I did the anthem. And as anthem spelled, you know, I asked, is it we and them or is it we and them? Because it shows the disparity in our anthem where every creed and race find equal place, but our jails don't reflect that. Our prisons don't reflect that. Every creed and race find an equal place. You find a doctor with class A drugs, he got a slap on the wrist and he's home. If you find me with that, I'll be under the jail. So and then I reference where we got our anthem from, how we got it. And a lot of people didn't know that. So I give a good history on our anthem. The originality again went over their head. So we continue to run into this brick wall, it seems, of people who not really have a clear understanding of the 5 rules of Calypso. And we have to sort that out. And then, of course, encouraging the chairman to have more activities for Calypsonians during the year. So that even if you miss this final race here, which is tomorrow night, at least you could prepare for another event coming up. You know, like in athletics, you have the Diamond League, before you have the World Championships, and then before you have the Olympics, and before you have Commonwealth Games, you have smaller games in between, right? That helps keep the athlete sharp.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to now advocate, with the help of others, let us have more activities on a smaller scale during the year. So we have Independence in August, then we have Calypso History Month in October. So give me something to look forward to, that so I could sing my Calypso again and not put it in the archives, you know, and wait till I get a new one to start again. At least give us something to look forward to after Carnival, so that more Calypsonians will continue to work and get a little money, you know, to tie them over, maybe help them with recording for the next year. I think that is something we have to look at and call on corporate Trinidad and Tobago to be a part of this drive.
Well, Garth St Clair, I thank you so much for your insights, the fantastic stories that you've related to us. Congratulations on all the great work that you're doing in Calypso, in counseling, in the fitness program that you're running, and particularly for this purpose in Calypso. I'm sure a lot of what you've shared here, many Calypsonians in the Eastern Caribbean in particular will be picking up on it. And I wish you and Natasha all the very best. And I thank you so much for taking the time.
You're welcome, Mike. Thank you very much for indulging me with the chat. And I think we can go back to maybe having a Caribbean Calypso competition. Remember, they had one some years ago. So maybe we can look at that again.
Well, that is certainly something to pick up on. There is a Queen of Queens regional Calypso competition,
yes,
that's organized and held in Montserrat. And, you know, perhaps, I mean, a King of Kings Calypso competition. There's a Leeward Islands Calypso competition in Anguilla. I think it's time to bring it back on the regional stage, not in terms of only enjoying the Calypsos from the various islands, but Calypsonians on a stage. And the sponsorship, I'm sure, won't be difficult, and the organization to put together. Tell you what, God, I'm going to put that in your hands. You've been delegated.
All right, Mike.
Thank you, man. Take care of yourself. All the best.
Oh, you good?
Okay, you too, Mike. Take care. Bye-bye.
I'll talk to you about something just now. Hold on. I'll make a real dollar. Yeah, the boss. Yeah, the boss stuck. All right. When you hear this, now I have a little problem. As a conscious Kaisonian, I was ready to give all I can for Kaiso showbiz. Hold on. But now I have some doubt. My hand in the lion mouth. The returns not adding up to the expenses. When I sing nice songs in the semi-final, people swear that I make the demonstration. Fuck like they want my soul, my pocket full of holes. I finish pawn all my silver and gold. Kaiso will make me a vagrant. Kaiso will make me a vagrant. Money tight, dread and slow. In my vagrant partner clothes I borrow. Kaiso will make me a vagrant. Kaiso will make me a vagrant. I hustling by traffic light like I want to end Morris Street in the night. Kaiso will make me a vagrant. God in heaven knows I could end up a vagrant for Kaiso. To tell you how this thing's serious, this time I believe me chorus. Hear them? I could end up a vagrant for Kaiso. Well, you all right, yes? I have to make a dollar, yes? Hear the boss? Hear this. Year after year, I just try my best to present Kaisos with depth and beautiful melodies. My partner mother can't make finals and I can't. Sometimes I feel somebody messing with me. Social commentaries, well-researched, positive, thought-provoking, original and constructive. Yes, a Kaiso jump from Tobago in the mascot yes so Mr. Mother can't flatten that like a pompano. Kaiso go make me a vagrant. Kaiso go make me a vagrant. I selling chatine in the market, cause every year I take in baskets. Good Lord God. I sneak in the bush by Trevor Sayers. I bounce about 2-3 entertainers. This Kaiso go make me a vagrant. God in heaven knows I could end up a vagrant for Kaiso. In case all you think I kicks in, listen what my friends them saying. I could end up a vagrant for Kaiso. Good Lord, man. Papa, yes. Daddy boss. Now get it boss. Here now. Do you remember Shadow's classic, Poverty is Hell? And 1%, Trini ain't come back since. Iowa and Rudder said, so long, no profit in Kaiso town. Oh, in Dubois done with Kaiso, he convinced this Kaiso business could be really pure hell. Plenty singers disappear and lose their shell. While I bear pain and show some class, I catch in my mother mass. But one day my name will be first at last. Kaiso go make me a vagrant. Kaiso go make me a vagrant. My credit union record is a crime. My grandmother dead about 50 times. Good Lord God. I check the blue machine. Well, first thing bad, the machine say, boy, let's give back the card. This Kaiso go make me a vagrant. God in heaven knows I could end up a vagrant for Kaiso. All you cannot profit here, I go on Morris Street.
I could end up a vagrant for Kaiso. Put your hands together. For Garth St Clair. God. Come, God.
Oh, they like you a bacchanal, cannot profit here now. Oh, they bring it down for me. I am hoping and praying for when that day comes, when every Kaisonian can live off this art form. But we must have leaders with vision who can come up with a plan that could one day even do away with competition. but they must decide if you're leading or competing. Always remember, perception shapes reality. And make sure we judges know the 5 rules of Kaiso to avoid another fiasco. Cause this ain't gonna make me no vagrant. This ain't gonna make me no vagrant. A chain is a song of his weakest link. Make this thing quick before we all sing. This ain't gonna make me no vagrant. This ain't gonna make me no vagrant. Somebody better do something fast before Kaiso end up in the rabas. This ain't gonna make me no vagrant. I may have to let go before I turn vagrant for Kaiso. Give us some music, Dylan. Remember? Yeah. Give me some brass and armor. I'm going to get him some more, get him some more. Hey, hear music. Let me conduct a band here. Give me.
Put your hands together for the man, Mr. Garth St Clair.